Morning, I'm Rob with Whole Products. We're going over some videos today on your check-in and check-out procedures for your rental of mud puppies. First, we're going to go over the mud puppy check-out. Firstly, we want to go over fluid levels. You want to make sure your engine oil is checked. Your engine oil is right back here. You have a dipstick on that, depending on if it's a Deutz or a Caterpillar engine. You'll check that, make sure your level is satisfactory. Next, you want to check the hours of the oil filter. If it's a brand new mud puppy, then your engine filter will not have a date and hours. And if it's a used system, you should have it in marker on there, a permanent marker, what the date and hours are. Next would be the engine coolant. Your engine coolant, of course, is the radiator behind me, engine cooler. Has also a level indicator on that. Next, we're looking at the hydraulic oil. So here's your hydraulic filler. This is your indicator right here. You want to make sure it's between high and medium. After the system's been run a few times, there will be oil throughout the hoses, so it's okay if it reads other than completely full. Next would be the hours on the hydraulic filter. So again, here's your hydraulic filters. Make sure that if it's not a used system, in permanent marker you put hours of the mud system, and you also have the date. That makes it easier for the next guy checking in or checking out. Next, we can go over components. You want to check the components of the mud puppy. Make sure they're in good, satisfactory condition. We'll go back to the screens. You've got a double screen shaped around here, and you've got different meshes on these screens. You'll either have a 10 or a 20 mesh on the bottom, so you want to make sure it's in good visible condition and that it's springs tight. It should have good tension on that. On your top screen, most likely you're going to have a 100 mesh. That one you want to look at a little bit closer. Make sure that screen does not have holes on it. Make sure its tension is good and tight also on that. Next, we can go over to the Disander cones. Okay, you got 3 cones on this particular system. Most of your systems will have either 2 or 3 cones. You can visually check and make sure there's no leaks and make sure that they're not plugged. So what I do is take a hanger or another small rod, go up inside there and make sure they're not plugged and that those cones will operate. Next, we've got hydraulic hoses. So make sure all your hydraulic hoses are intact. Make sure the fittings are clean and that you don't see visible leaks on those fittings. Basically, the hoses that you're going to be reeling in and out, you've got 3 hoses. One will be attached to the guzzler. That would be your case drain. Also, make sure there's no holes, sprays, and make sure that these fittings are in good shape. A lot of times we start getting worn down, they're going to be leaking hydraulic fluid, and they're not even going to know it because it's right in their pit. Also, on your hoses here, you've got a female and a male. Make sure they attach to the guzzler, and they also are in good shape, and no frays, holes in these hoses. Fluid hose. So you've got a 3-inch mud hose, 20 foot on this one, with cam locks, male and female. Make sure the cam locks are intact. Make sure the clamps are attached and there's no obstruction or holes in this hose. So it's good to actually run something through it. If you can run water all the way through it, then you know it's not obstructed. Pickup pump. So you either have a T11 or a T09 sand guzzler. It's okay to run that on the side. You can visually look down in there and see if there's any obstructions on that guzzler. You can also, without it being connected, put your hand in there and you can actually spin that guzzler and make sure there's no obstructions. Again, make sure there's no leaks and the guzzler's in good shape. Next, we'll go over the tank cleanliness. Before you check this out, make sure that tank is clean, doesn't have any obstructions. Make sure there's no sand buildup in the bottom of that tank, front and back. That you can just visually check inside the tank and see what the cleanliness is. Also, make sure you have a tank plug. It'll either be a 2-inch or 3-inch, depending on which model mud puppy. But make sure you have this. This is important. I don't want to get to the job and realize that they can't plug off that tank. We're going to continue the checkout procedures. We were checking components piece by piece on this procedure. Next, we'll move over to the Disander pump. This is a little 118 3x2 pump. This is the pump that feeds the cones. Now this, when you're checking this out, it's important that you check and make sure there's no leaks under here. Most likely these pumps are going to be a mechanically sealed pump, so you should not have any mud dripping and mud onto the frame. Also, make sure your tree is in good shape, your levers, and the hose is not obstructed. This hose is important that it goes up to the Disander, and you should have the PSI pressure up there. Next, we'll do an overall trailer check. Make sure your trailer is in good shape. A lot of times we get these back and you will have a bent frame or you'll have some light damage. It's good to do a walk around, a complete walk around. Check your lights. Check and make sure your tires are tight and inflated to about 50 PSI. It's required on those tires. And that there's no damage on the trailer itself or the jack. Next, we'll go on to the license plate. Should have a license plate. If this is a rental unit, depending on what state you're at, what state you're in, the license plate should be in good shape, and underneath one of the tail lights, you'll have a beaming light on that plate. Tire condition, want to check your tire condition, make sure there's no flats, no nails, no obstructions in the tire, and check your PSI on that. 50 PSI recommended. Check your trailer hitch. You'll have a ball 2 15/16 or a pintle hitch on that. Also make sure that's in good shape and did not get damaged on the last rental. Check your safety chains. You've got 2 safety chains on there. Make sure they're in good shape. Sometimes they do come back damaged and or components on those are damaged. You also have an electrical plug. Make sure that's in good shape. Make sure there's no obstructions down in there and slots, and that the wire is in good shape, wasn't ran over or frayed or cut. Okay, next you're going to check your trailer lights. You want to plug this in. Actually physically plug this into your truck and make sure that the lights are working. Brake lights, signals, and hazards on those. Next, you want to check your brakes. So you do have electric brakes on here. When you hook this up, the mud puppy will roll freely, and when you hit your brakes, it should stop without pushing the truck. Okay, we're wrapping up the checkout procedures on the mud puppy rental. Last few things you want to check. We went over most of the components. Went over your pumps, guzzlers, your hoses, your hydraulic hoses, the cones, screens, most of your trailer. We've gone over most of that. Next, I would definitely make sure that your battery is good to go. Go ahead and pull that e-stop. Turn the key halfway. You should get an indication. It'll show you your hours. And then you want to start it up. Start it up, you know everything's good for the engine. Every check, you know that filter's a good thing. You can go ahead and shut that down. You just wanted to make sure everything's operational with that. Overall, you want to just do another quick check. Make sure everything's good, all your components, and no obstructions in your hoses. If you do have any questions, it's important that you contact your whole products branch that's rented the mud puppy to you, and we will address those problems. If If you have any other further problems, it's okay to contact me anytime.